So the subject now is measuring success. For me, this is pretty much synonymous with defining success when it comes to human performance. So to me, they're pretty synonymous. It's like measuring performance equals defining success. So in the work that I've done over the years, the whole harder than, faster than, tougher than thing has been the sort of social norm around, being branded as a great performer or successful. So that to me becomes the first caveat, because it's not really defined as an inner development goal or commitment. It's defined by things that are external to you. So you don't really get a grip on it. The idea is to go into some kind of first-person inquiry in terms of what you will believe the measurement of performance and or success is defined by you. Personally, I think you will save yourself a lot of aggravation. I think the second step of that would be to find good company for the journey. So when I worked with one of my professors, he was a Harvard professor, Professor Bob Keegan, he was very, very clear that when we commit to performance, that we really need to find good company for the journey. And that would mean finding people who are closely bonded to you, who will absolutely champion you. And you need to sit down with these people. And it will often only be a small group of 3 or 4 or 5 people, where you start understanding what it is you want in terms of measuring performance and defining your own success. And they become your sort of core support group who will actually champion you. A lot of us can go on a journey, where it's more about, people pleasing, pleasing the other, pleasing an employer, pleasing a boss, pleasing a spouse, pleasing a friend. And we kind of walk past what really, really serves us well, that truly drives us in terms of making sense of the world that we want to see. So for me, the very first part of any exercise in measuring performance or defining success is to sit down and understand what it is you want and take a long-term view and imagine what that would be like in a year's time, 3 years' time, 7 years' time, 15 years' time. And some of the bigger sort of longer term views can be as much as 40 years ahead of ourselves. The ability to kind of walk through your own system and look back without regrets and saying, this is the journey I decided I would take. And along the way, there were going to be certain performance measures or touch points where I'd say, I have made it or I am making it. So for me, the next thing that we have to understand is success, performance is about sustainability. It is not, in fact, a destination. It is a journey. And along the way, if you've got the right support and good company for that journey, you should be able to assess whether you are doing well or not. So peer assessment, which means colleagues, friends, people that are generally closely bonded to you, would be very, very important for you to be able to knock out a strategy which is a little bit more organic than imposed on deciding, what success and performance measures mean to you and then be able to write those programs. And writing those programs for me means that you have to sit down and say, there are certain waypoints along the way in terms of what I want to achieve. This is good company for the journey. It could be a relationship with a marketer. It could be a relationship with your accountant. It could be a relationship with your spouse. It could be a relationship with business partners. It could be a relationship with any amount of people who are actually out there rooting for you. It's such an important consideration. The next thing then, of course, is to understand that because it's a journey and not a destination, the things will have to be reviewed and updated, including your performance measures. I've often heard it said that people set very bombastic, maybe even really difficult goals. But rather that than none at all, and understand that, one sale is a success. One client is a success. And slowly but surely, the better you get to know yourself and what drives you, and the more people who support you understand what drives you, the sooner you'll be able to make more and more connections. So the journey is also an important thing to map out. So in terms of what motivates, what drives, what interests you, you've got to think very, very carefully, because along the way, you are going to come up against the challenges of people who will probably not be rooting for you. And you need to understand where your boundaries lie in terms of what's working and not working. And sometimes you have to make some pretty tough decisions in terms of saying, I can't work with this particular person, or this is not going to work for me. So it's also about a very, 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 very high degree of self-care. And I always use the word keeping your bucket full. Keeping your bucket full must be, without a doubt, you recognizing that you're conflicted about something along the journey, and you may just be on the verge of giving up, when in fact, you're just about to succeed. And this is a really important aspect of any performance thing. And we've seen too much of it in the sports world, where, a guy should have been rested, or a guy should have taken better care of himself, or a woman. And instead, they were forced into a place because of a coach or because of a mentor, harder than, tougher than, and wiped out, and their careers were completely ruined. So that adds no value at all. So in this particular talk or presentation, I would be very, 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 very clear that I'm an experience-based practitioner, trained as a coach at University College Cork, at Michael Smith Graduate School of Business. I've been coaching, I would imagine, somewhere in the region of 22,000 hours of coaching now, and also running businesses, which would probably be another 20-odd thousand hours of running businesses. Some magnificent failures, some magnificent successes, but you really do need somebody, in your corner that can actually show you the way and flag for you where you might be going wrong. You might be heading into dangerous territory. So the experience-based practitioner, which is what I am, says, this is my journey. This is your journey. I will accompany you on your journey, and we will see what we can co-create. Right? There may be things you might need to let go of, and there may be things that you need to let in, but it's always looking for that simple, subtle, really powerful, impactful next step. Otherwise, you're just going to overwhelm yourself and cause yourself all kinds of problems. So there's my story about measuring performance and success. It's okay to have them, but it's also you've got to be very careful about setting the bar so high that you can't reach that goal or fulfill that commitment. And then you'll end up actually hurting yourself and living with enormous disappointment. And I can speak to that and attest to that, because I've experienced it in a few instances episodes in my life. So I hope that you found this talk useful, and I hope that you will be able to do something with it. In terms of who I am, well, my name's Dr. Keith Dietz. I'm, I suppose some people have called me a rather unusual bloke, but I grew up in Africa, literally in the bushveld, walking around barefoot. And who would have ever thought that I would have reached some of the goals and commitments of one day graduating from the University College of Cork, the doctorate in business administration, business economics. So I think to myself, I did take a long-term view. There were very noticeable bumps in the road. And fortunately, I've been able to create enormous impact in people's lives by helping them, journey through and overcome piles of obstacles out there. But it's always been the long-term view. Okay. Educating my children was a long-term view. Educating myself was a long-term view. Keeping my health and psychological well-being together was a long-term view. So I've committed to that, and I've committed to growing people's businesses. So I suppose part of the sales spiel is, so why me? Why would you want to talk to me? Well, firstly, you can contact me very easily, and you can actually have a really decent conversation. I promise you. You will probably be given the bones of some kind of a framework that you can populate for yourself. And then, of course, if you're interested in doing work with me, I'm available, but it does necessarily mean having a conversation or a series of conversations, just to be able to make sure that you and I are both happy to be able to work in the same space and enjoy the journey. If you're interested in talking to me. So maybe after this, we'll have some questions and answers. Thank you for your time.